We'll begin here in just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. We'll begin here in just a minute. YouTube has started, so we jump over to YouTube really quick. We know we're going to get this weird thing where it's going to start the live broadcast and a recorded broadcast at the same time. I don't know why it does that, but it's going to do that. So, oh, yeah, there it goes. I don't know why it does that, but it does that. So we got that fixed. Okay, now let me go over here. Let's see if we can find Sermon Audio here. Go to the Sermon Audio website, click and listen. How do we sound? I don't know why it does that, but it does. Okay, we sound okay. Come back over here. And yeah, we'll get started. We'll get started here in just a second. Oh, man. Yeah, we'll get started. Yeah, I have so many emotions and feelings right now that yeah. We'll talk about it all. Yeah. We'll see what we can get accomplished, but we'll get started here in just a minute. We'll get started here in just a minute. Probably no one's going to tune in on a Saturday morning, but that's okay. I've got to finish this one way or the other. I have to finish this one way or the other. So we'll get started here in just a minute. I don't know if I have the part from Amazon. Maybe we'll get to there in a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will get started and hopefully this goes well. I hope so. Are you ready? We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective, this is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. Well, actually, this is not a good morning. So I'm just going to say morning. I'm not even going to say morning. I'll just say welcome, everyone. It is Saturday, March the 21st, 2026. It is currently 11:38 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central studio located right here in Abilene, Texas. And why isn't it a good morning? It's not a good morning because I have to, review the rest of a message that was taught inside a church. And whenever I review sermons and lessons and things preached and taught in churches, sadly, and I just have to be honest with you, most of the time, then it becomes not a good morning, not a good afternoon, not a good evening, not a good night, because sermons typically don't do anything positive for me. They typically do more harm. They cause more frustration, more irritation. It makes me question even the purpose or the relevance of the church. And it makes me want to just basically give up and say, everything is meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. All is vanity. There's no point in doing anything else. All is useless. All is worthless. I just give up and I want to walk away. And I know that's not, I know that makes people get very frustrated with me, but look, I'm just being honest. Look, I can sit here and put on a happy face and pretend, but the reality is the more sermons I listen to, the more frustrated I get. And it just demonstrates to me how I no longer belong. I no longer fit in. I'm now find myself constantly at odds with basically church culture and the language the church uses. I just don't fit in. And I hate to say this, but I think the reality is the more you learn about theology, the more you learn about hermeneutics, the more you're not going to be welcomed inside the church, or you're not going to feel welcomed. You're going to feel like a stranger. You're going to feel like an outcast. You're not going to fit in because the church operates in a way that to me is completely contrary to true biblical hermeneutics and true theology. It really does. It's all about, I say it all the time, you pick a theological team and you just talk that way and go along with it, and you're never supposed to challenge or question or think about anything. You're supposed to just turn off your brain, pick up the crayons, and color inside the lines. And I hate that entire world. And it can bother me because, and here's my conflict, and this is where you can say, you contradict yourself. And it's not that I try to contradict myself. There's just a bit of duplicity, I guess, in my mind. On one hand, I love the idea of, say, sermon audio. I love the concept. Millions of sermons. I can listen to them all day, all night, and I can be challenged to look at scripture, hear different perspectives. In one sense, I can talk about my love for that, how much I appreciate that, how much I support that, how much I will promote that. On the other hand, when I start listening, I can find myself becoming more and more frustrated. And I know that seems to contradict the other, but I think on one hand, I can see what's there and want to use it, but by using it, I can also acknowledge, I guess both can be true at the same time. I can be greatly appreciative of it and see the value in it. And I try to explain to you even the value of the very bad messages, because the bad messages always inevitably leads me deeper and deeper into the text, asking deeper and harder theological questions. So there is good that comes from it, but I can't deny the emotional fatigue and just almost spiritual depression that it can lead to. And sometimes that's very frustrating. And this is not, I'm not saying this as someone who's only reviewed like 3 sermons in my life. I've listened to who knows how many. I don't even know. The number of sermons I've listened to in my life is staggering because I spend so much of my time listening. And now there's times I'll go through periods where I don't listen to very many because sometimes I need to give myself a break, which is kind of bad that sometimes I need a break from listening to sermons, but it's just the reality. Now, I say all of this because, well, I got sent an email with a link to a message. I looked at the title of the message, No More Boring Bible Study. No more boring Bible study. And there was one part of my brain that said, oh, no more boring Bible study. This is going to talk about probably giving us some great Bible study method so that we will no longer be bored in our Bible study. This should be interesting since I love Bible study methods. I will be able to listen to this one, be able to possibly add something to it, critique it, or be able to take it and we create a new one. So I thought there could be some positive that comes from it. But there's another part of my brain that's like, oh boy, no more boring Bible study. This is going to be another church giving me the standard, vague, nonsensical, useless, hey, we're teaching you how to study the Bible, and they don't really give you anything meaningful. They give you some vague principles, some cliches, some slogans, throw a little bit of, here's an overarching kind of idea to look for. And it's like, they don't really give you any literal step-by-step method. And almost immediately I start losing my mind because there are actual methods out there. There's actual biblical hermeneutical principles that you can give people, but the church never seems to do that. So I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm gonna listen to it. And so the way I do things is when I decide to listen, not every single time because I would be on the air like 24 hours a day, but I try as much as possible when I'm going to listen to something, I just turn on the microphone, go live, and listen to it live on the air, giving my real-time feedback and reaction. The only problem is, depending on how a message goes, sometimes my real-time reaction I know people are going to say you're overly dramatic. I can get very angry and upset and mad. And especially when it's framed in this context, like here, hey, there's a problem. People in the church aren't studying the Bible, and I'm here to fix it. That's why we're having this special seminar. Okay, so the whole thing is crazy. So let me just go through some of my basic frustrations here because it bothers me to no end. All right. So we have, and I want you to just follow this because even I know we've been doing the review, but sometimes we need to kind of stop and just have a discussion about some of the issues arising from all of these hours of review. We've done over almost 3 hours of review. So I've already covered most of the content. I do want to finish it, but we need to have a conversation here because there's a number of issues. I should have written these down, but I'll just do this and, impromptu, just, I'll just go with what's on the top of my head and just try to be very real with you. So here's kind of my problem. I can get in my car right now. I live here in Abilene, Texas. And from where this studio is located, I can be driving past a church and probably 60 seconds, maybe a minute. Well, 60 seconds is a minute. 60 seconds is a minute. Maybe about 2 minutes, maybe. I don't even think it would take 2 minutes. All I have to do is get down the street I live on, turn right, and I'm driving past a Nazarene church in literally seconds, okay? And then if I go all the way to the end of the street, well, actually, I think there's another church on the right. So there's a Nazarene on the left. If I go a little bit further on the right, I think it's a Church of Christ. If I go a little bit further down the street, there's the park, the mega church in Abilene, Beltway Park. I think they used to have Baptist in the name. I don't know what they are, but it's the mega church in town. They have a south side campus and a north side campus. So just the street at the end of my residential area, there are three, and those are three major churches, right? Just right there. If I turn left and then turn right and get on the highway, within, I don't know, about 2 minutes, I'm going to be driving past River of Life. If I could go down, there's churches all over the place. The point is there's big churches all over the place. I think within about if you take Abilene and maybe like the surrounding area, there's probably like 250 churches, 3 Christian universities. There's a church. The joke here in Abilene, there's a church on there's 2 churches on every street corner. And that's not too far from the truth. It's absolutely crazy how many churches there are in this city. And you drive by all of these buildings and you look at these buildings and you just realize the amount of money, not only did it take to build them, the amount of money it probably takes to continue making payments for them, and all the money it takes just to keep them operating. It requires a serious amount of money, paying the electricity, all the things you have to do to keep those buildings open. So you have these huge buildings, all of this money going to keep them open. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Most of them could shut down and it wouldn't make a difference because what people are doing inside those churches, they're obviously not learning how to study the Bible. And most people who go to church are biblically and theologically illiterate. And almost every study will demonstrate that and prove that. Listen to Christians talk. They don't know what they're talking about. So what's the point of having all of these churches and all of this money if they're not doing anything? And then anytime we start realizing there's a problem within Christianity, there's a problem with the men, there's a problem with the women, there's a problem with pornography, there's a problem with understanding the Bible, there's a problem with Bible reading, it will be ministries outside of the local church that will be formed to try to address the problem. Now, wait a minute. Why do we need all of these outside organizations and institutions and ministries to arise to fix the problem inside the church when we are spending all of this money to keep the churches operating? If the churches aren't solving these problems, addressing these problems, then the church is useless and meaningless, and we should stop giving money to the church and give money to these organizations outside of the church trying to fix the problem. And with this situation, that this review we've been talking about, no more boring Bible study, this is a perfect example of it. It's a she. She has identified that for most Christians, they think studying the Bible is boring. And that there's a problem because Christians are not studying their Bible. She thinks the problem is because they think it's boring. So what did she do? She's addressing the problem. How is she addressing the problem? She created a YouTube channel. She's trying to fix the problem via a YouTube channel. She has all kinds of followers, and she has written a book to fix the problem. All of this is outside the church. And so here on Sermon Audio, we have a church, Bay Presbyterian Church. They want to address this problem. So what do? They bring in this woman. So I guess no men in the church could address the problem. No. They bring in a woman to stand behind the pulpit in the church to try to get the people in the church to study the Bible so it will no longer be boring. Why can't the church address the problem? Why can't the church fix the problem? And it would be curious to know, was she paid to come to this church? Did it cost money for them to have this seminar? I know to purchase her books. There's 2 books. There's the main book, and then there's like a study guide workbook kind of thing. I think if you buy both of them, it's going to be, I think, about $30-something. They're like $15 a piece, if I remember correctly. So you've got to buy resources, but again, it's all outside of the church. So if the church can't fix anything, and it's always these outside ministries trying to solve the problem, then what's the point of the church? I'm going to continue to say that. The church as an institution is meaningless. You wouldn't need all of these outside ministries to fix the problems inside the church. The church seems to never. And so what does the church do? Well, we've got this problem. We're going to bring in a special speaker. We're going to hold a conference. Why can't the church solve the problem on its, I don't know, when the doors are actually open? You know, Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday. I know we canceled those services. I don't know. So whatever the case may be, I don't get it. And so sometimes I just get so frustrated. And this is another good example. So it's just crazy. But then there's another issue. So you've got the church as an institution that never seems to be able to resolve the problem. So there's got to be ministries outside of the church to try to fix the problems inside the church. The whole thing just seems weird. And we could get into a whole discussion there. But there's another issue. Over and over and over and over again. Here is what we hear just over and over and over, is that Christians have a hard time studying the Bible because they just don't understand it. They're overwhelmed by it. They are confused by it. They can't seem to figure it out. Now, on one hand, I'm baffled. If you go to church, why haven't you been able to figure it out? Why hasn't your church taught you to figure it out? If I just look here, if I can find it. Yes, okay, right here on Amazon.com. Amazon.com. There is a book entitled The Bible Simplified. Learn the story, live the story. A Christian Bible study guide to help you understand the meaning and message of Scripture. All right? The Bible Simplified. Learn the story, live the story. A Christian Bible study guide to help you understand the meaning and message of Scripture. This was put out on July 2025. Now, there are 9 videos about this Bible study guide thing, okay? The book looks pretty basic, pretty simple, but okay, that's fine. Someone else published something to help people study the Bible. But when you watch the 9 videos, and I was watching them right before I went live, and I was starting to lose my mind again, almost every single one, Christians find themselves overwhelmed. They find themselves confused. They just don't understand how things fit together in the Bible. They just don't get it. So once again, it's all Christians who go to church can't understand it. So what do they need to do? Forget church. Get on Amazon.com, purchase the Bible Simplified, learn the story, live the story, a Christian Bible study guide for about $19 for the hardcover. It's currently on sale. The list price is $32.99. Yeah, that's cheap. $32. So for $32, I can have the Bible simplified. But notice, I'm going to Amazon. I'm not going to church. So what's the point of going to church? It sounds like if you go to church, all you're going to do is not understand the Bible and be confounded and be confused. So you constantly need this Bible study guide, this commentary. You constantly need everything else. Now, what's so baffling is the woman who was teaching, how we can no longer, we can stop having boring Bible study, no more boring Bible study. Her claim is, the problem is the church just keeps giving people fish versus teaching them how to fish. That the problem is that the church is not teaching people how to. So she even acknowledges the church is not teaching people how to fish. So she shows up in the church for some seminary, supposedly to teach people how to fish. But the problem is we've reviewed 3 hours and she hasn't taught people how to do anything. She's not given a method. She's not given instructions. She's given some vague principles. It's been maddening. So I've just reached this. I'm just totally frustrated with it. On one hand, the church proves itself to be useless. Everyone seems to acknowledge that it's useless. That's why you have to have all of these other organizations form to try to address the problem. And then everything we ever read as Christians are like, I just don't understand the Bible. I don't know how to study the Bible. I don't get it. It's confusing. It's overwhelming. Well, why would Christians keep saying that if they're going to church? If they're going to church, they should be Bible experts. They should be hermeneutic. They should know hermeneutics. They should know Bible interpretation. They should know Bible study methods. They should be the go-to experts. If you're going to church and you don't even know how to figure out how to truly explain and take apart the text, then you're not going to church to be equipped. You're going to church because you need a social club and you want to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and have some cake with one another. Well, then just tell me that all you care about is needing friends. Take the name church off the building, call it the community group, and go there and have your stinking friends. But man, you can't have it both ways. Oh, the church is so important. The church is so important. And then everything around us screams, no, actually it's not. Oh, if you want friends, if you want companionship, if you want fellowship, then the church is great. But clearly, the entire Christian publishing world is like, hey, you're not going to get this in church. You need this. You need this. Why? What's the point of going to church? I hope I articulated all of that as carefully as I can. I could go on for hours about the overarching problem, but those are major issues. So all I know to do is we've already done 3 hours of this. It's been painful. It's been maddening. Basically what she decided to do, she didn't really give us any actual steps. She kept promoting her book. In my book, I tell you to do this. In my book. Okay, but she doesn't actually do anything there at the seminar. So I don't know if the seminar is just an info commercial, but finally she's like, we're going to go to the book of Ruth. Yay. And I thought, okay, she's going to go to the book of Ruth, use chapter 1 to demonstrate whatever this method is, that the Bible won't be boring for anybody. But she doesn't give a method. She just starts giving interpretation to Ruth. And a lot of the things she says is just not supported by the text, goes way beyond the text. And it's just her making assumptions and accusations. And in many cases, bearing false witness against people in the Bible, where the Bible never states that they did those things or accused them of doing what she was accusing them of, which then is just her interpretive imagination, which she's demonstrating the wrong way to study the Bible. It may not be boring. He's just not going to find the meaning of the text. So we're going to try to finish up her section on Ruth. I'm not going to try to interrupt too much. And then from what I can tell, she goes from this and then she just slides over into some Q&A. And when she gets to the Q&A, I'm going to be like, wait, what's going on here? So we're going to try to figure all of this out. I just want to finish this. Well, actually, to be honest, I don't even want to finish this. No, I'm going to be more transparent. I want to be done with this. I want to delete this and never see it ever again. But when you've done 3 hours of work, do you just stop right there and walk away? Part of me just wants to stop and walk away. I know most people won't care. You may not care, but then I'll have to live with the fact that I didn't finish it. Like I have to live with the fact of other things I didn't finish it, and I don't want to add to that list. So we're going to finish this only because I feel like I have to. I feel like an obligation. It's mainly for my own mental health. I have a feeling this one is going to be bad, but we've got to finish this. So I'll try to figure out how much to interrupt. But man, I guess the good thing, I will try to find, the good thing is this entire situation has brought up some of those bigger issues I just addressed. And notice all those issues I addressed had nothing to do with her, had nothing even to do with that church. I took it and went to these deeper issues that impact the church at large, Christianity at large, Christians at large, how ineffectual the church is. So these are deeper issues. So I didn't make it about her. I didn't make it about her personality. I didn't make it about her. I made it about these bigger issues. All right? Because I want it to be clear that that's what I typically try to do. I'm trying to address big issues, not the individual. I don't want to ever make it about the individual. I want to make it about the ideas. I want to make it about the issue, not about the person. It's not about a person. The person is irrelevant here. They're giving a message, and this message is raising these deeper, very serious questions that I think all Christians should ask. All right, but let's let her finish up her Ruth thing, and then we'll see if we get to the Q&A. Oh boy, here we go.
The means that God provides a blessing. All right, so we look towards the end of the chapter, and Naomi kind of gives up, and they turn back to Bethlehem, and she's like, all right, you can come with me. That's fine, whatever. They turn back. Again, that word is repeated all throughout this chapter, shub, if you want to look it up. And again, they have no man, so no hope to provide, no hope to birth or marry another man, and there's this deadweight daughter-in-law following Naomi around. But Naomi keeps up her main character energy. She is the one taking all the action again. And all the people are talking about her. So let's read this starting in verse 19. So the two women, Naomi and Ruth, went until they came to Bethlehem. That's the house of bread. And when they arrived to the house of bread, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women of the town exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" I love it. That's so relatable. I don't know about this church, because this church is a beautiful church with wonderful people whom I've fallen in love with. But that is so church culture to be like, is that Naomi? I heard that Ruth might be pregnant. You know, like just spilling the tea and gossiping, and you can't shut us up all too often. Lord, forgive us for the ways that we love to talk, don't we, as women? Women's ministry, we're like, can I pray for you? Do you have a prayer request? Because I would love to know it, right? I would love to know the tea. I can just imagine the women were gossiping at the town gate, okay?
Now, the one thing she does is she tries to take the biblical narrative and then she tries to expand and turn it into an interesting story, because you can kind of see now what her goal is. Her goal is not to teach anybody how to study the Bible. That's clearly not her goal. Her goal is to somehow try to convince people that the Bible is fun and it's interesting and it's cool and it's relatable and she's got main character, vibe, whatever the phrase she uses, main character energy. And she wants to just turn it into like using everyday vernacular to try to take the story and make it cool and make it interesting. This, you know what it feels like? This feels like a youth pastor trying to get the teenagers excited about the things of God by trying to talk about it in a hip and cool way and using the lingo of the teenagers, right? Bruh. Yeah. And trying to, I don't know. You're trying to use, that's sus, and trying to use any kind of verbiage and it comes across cheesy, it comes across ridiculous, and it comes across, and to me, you're patronizing. You're. I don't know. It's almost like you're mocking it, but you're not mocking it. You're trying to be a poser, is what you're trying to come across. I don't know what terminology to use. You come across fake. You're trying to talk in their language, so they're like, "Ooh, Christianity is really cool and hip. Yeah, I'm down with it." Yeah. Oh, that stuff is so irritating, and that's kind of what she's doing here. Oh, look, everyone. Look, ladies. The Ruth is just like church culture, because church culture is full of a bunch of women who gossip and slander. Well, that's not something that's funny. That should be something that's condemned. Now, she does say, Lord, forgive us because we like to talk, but it comes across in a very unserious way. No, that's a major problem. If the church culture is filled with women who do nothing but gossip and talk about people and slander and bear false witness, then the problem isn't that they don't know how to study the Bible. The problem is they need to learn to shut their mouths. Okay, maybe that's what we should be talking about. But she wants to talk about it in this kind of, it comes across, I don't know the word. It comes across in just a very patronizing kind of way. I don't know. I don't like it at all. And it just seems so foolish, because I guess what she wants to do is just try to convince people the Bible's not boring. Because see, all these women are talking about Ruth and Naomi, just like the church culture does. Okay. Are you going to talk about what Ruth is actually about, the book? Are you? You think maybe that would be a good idea? That this is the time of Judges. There is no king in Israel, and everyone is doing what is right in their own eyes. Well, how are we going to get to a king? Well, Ruth is ultimately going to run into Boaz, and then they're going to you can look at the genealogy at the end. You end up with David, which will ultimately end up with the King of Kings, Jesus. Okay, so this is about covenant failure. I mean, we could get into all the deeper issues. She's not going to get into the deeper theological issues because she's too much trying to turn this into, ooh, this is a cool little story. I don't know. It's maddening is what it is. It's maddening, but okay. Yeah, I was going to look up something she said about the Hebrew, but I'm not even going to get into that. You're getting the basic idea of what she's trying to do. But that's the feeling I get. It feels like when youth pastors try to talk about Christianity or the Bible, and they take a biblical story and they try to talk about it in a cool way, that the kids will be like, aha, that's funny. Now, I understand. Look, I've been guilty of doing that. Because when you speak publicly, you want to be engaging. You want people to think you're a great speaker. The only problem is so many times when you take a biblical narrative and you start retelling the story and you start adding all of this drama and humor and, sarcasm, you start adding all this, you start turning the Bible story into something other than what the text is actually giving you. And that is problematic because you're actually leading people away from the text and not to the text. The text is what the text is. And we're not to add anything. We're supposed to not add anything to it or take anything away. And preachers have been adding and subtracting forever because they typically will read the story and then they tell the story. And that's where all of the additions and subtractions show up. And for some weird reason, the people in the pew, as long as the story is funny, entertaining, they'll be amening it and liking it. But you should be like, well, wait a minute. I think we're getting away from the text. So that's the issue.
And so Naomi, I'm sure, was peeved. I'm sure she was walking and it was the worst of the worst. What do they call it? It's just an embarrassing walk into town. And she probably, walk of shame. Thank you. You are my kind of girl. You knew, she could read my mind, right? It was the worst of the worst, walk of shame. She's walking back to Bethlehem, and everybody's starting to recognize her. They're like, she's got some wrinkles, and she doesn't have her 2 sons or her husband. She's aged. Where's her bread? She looks like she's been in a famine, right? And they're eyeballing her, and she's like, don't even call me Naomi. I love it. It's like a little teenager. Don't call me Naomi, which again means pleasant. Call me Mara, which means bitter, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. She's willing to change her name, willing to change her identity because of this extreme heartbreak. It's like it's defined her to the core. And I don't know if you guys have ever been defined by your heartbreak, but I can definitely relate. I can let my heartbreak rule and reign over my life and my hopes and my dreams and act like my heartbreak is the end of my story and that it defines me. that my loss or my hardships are what define me. And Naomi is absolutely going through this. She says, don't call me pleasant, call me bitter, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me pleasant? Yahweh has afflicted me, and the Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. Y'all, she is taking jabs at God. In case you didn't hear that, in case we just read that speech way too quickly, she is taking absolute jabs at the character of our God. And we should be offended. We should be like, whoa, 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 girl. I know you lost your 2 sons. I know you lost your husband. I know it's probably really, really bad, but you are taking jabs at my God. You see, she said her life is very bitter, and she says that he brought her back empty, afflicted her, and brought misfortune against her. Now note, I don't have them circled, but she uses Yahweh twice here. You'll see it, middle of 21 and the end of 21. Yahweh, Yahweh, remember that's the covenant name of God, the I am, okay? And then she also uses this other.
Man, okay, I'm going to start losing my mind here. All right, I don't know who this lady is, but she's starting to really, I don't like to make things personal, but I'm getting very irritated by this. She did this same garbage with Elimelech and made all kinds of accusations about him. That he was turning to the gods of Moabites. He was basically an idolater, and he died because of what he did. Nothing the text literally says. Now she's going after Naomi, that Naomi is giving jabs at God, and we should be offended. You don't talk about my God that way. Hey, lady, he's God. The whole my God. Okay, we could get into a whole discussion about that. All right, but this is, okay. As this lady has written a book about supposedly how to study the Bible. All right, so let me help her out. And now I'm going to be patronizing here, okay? I don't want to be condescending, okay? But I'm going to try my best to be calm here. This is not sarcasm. This is not mockery. And this is not an irreverent attack that Naomi is giving. I think typically what we call this in hermeneutics is this is the language of lament. One of those genres of literature inside the Bible. Naomi is speaking in the same category as Job when he complained about God's dealings. The same language we find in the Psalms, where the psalmist will either question or grieve or cry out. We have Job 3, where he curses the day of his birth. We have Psalm 13, how long, O Lord? In Scripture, a lament is honest, it is raw, it is emotionally intense. But it is still within the framework of a relationship with God. It's not someone abandoning God. It's not someone walking away from God. It's someone who screams out to God in pain. They may express their frustration. They may express their anger, but it's still in relationship with God. Naomi is not being hostile or irreverent. She still believes in God. She calls him the Almighty. She attributes her life to him. She sees him as sovereign. She speaks to reality, not against God. She's not rejecting God. She is acknowledging reality in light of there being a God. Naomi is saying, God has dealt bitterly with me. Is she correct? Now, the text does not immediately resolve that, and that's important. It gives you the tension. It gives you her emotion. We're supposed to see the loss. We're supposed to see the emptiness. We're supposed to see the grief. Maybe we're supposed to feel the theological tension between the reality of God and the reality of this woman's life. I don't think we're supposed to walk away going, I'm offended. Naomi's words are descriptive of her experience. They are not a doctrinal statement. This is a biblical lament, which is biblical. Oh, we should be offended because nobody talks to my God that way. My God. Oh, my goodness gracious. I'm so sick and tired of this nonsense. Man. Just crazy. A seminar that's supposed to be teaching people how to understand the Bible, I guess can't identify simple lament language, which is found throughout the Old Testament. Or as well, especially, and I don't say the entire Old Testament, and certain parts of the Old Testament, especially within Job, Psalms. There's other places as well where people will lift up their voice and lament. Oh, man. Okay, we'll just continue. Right there almost made me want to just shut this down because that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. I mean, this would be one thing if this was some young preacher maybe preaching their first sermon. But this is a woman who's supposedly seen as some kind of an expert in how to study the Bible. Even her father-in-law, when he gave their introduction, she has more followers than Carter has liver pills. And she's, she's written this book. And she's supposedly the one here to help people stop having boring Bible study. The church thought so much of her, they brought her in. So, I mean, and you're just like, you didn't have anybody in your church who could do a better job in explaining how to study the Bible? This is the best we've got? She has over 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. This is what people are listening to learn how to study the Bible. We're in trouble.
Her name, the Almighty, that's Shaddai or El Shaddai. She uses that name twice as well. Now, if we are any good Jew, Jews would have the whole Pentateuch memorized. This name is used all throughout the Pentateuch. It's like the name of God whenever God is making his promises with his people. It's used over and over again with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. It's passed on to Moses and David. It is like the covenant name along with Yahweh. In fact, when God goes before Moses, he says, I am El Shaddai, or the forefathers knew me as El Shaddai, I'm Yahweh. And so here's a couple cross-references. The Lord says it to Abraham in Genesis 17:1. Then Isaac, the son of Abraham, passes it down to his son, Jacob, in Genesis 28:3. And it's always when they're reiterating God's promises, but we'll get there in a second. Then God reiterates the same name about himself, the Almighty, in Genesis 35:11. And then Jacob passes it on to his sons in Genesis 43:14, 48:3, and 49:25. Like, this is a name of God that means something to God's people. It's like, Patrick, my great father-in-law, he has something that he says it's so sweet at all the weddings that he does. He says, what God separates, let no man separate. Wait, what God joins, let no man separate. Leave it to me to mix it up. But he said it at our wedding, and I remember I was like, like holding back tears. It was so beautiful. And at all the weddings I've been to that he's done, he says it. That's something that I only hear him say at those special times. Or maybe we have other things that we say, even just the Merry Christmas and the songs that we sing at Christmas service.
Oh, boy. Does anybody even know what's going on at this point? Does anybody know? I guess she's going to use this to say Naomi is a piece of trash, and she's using this name of God because she's being irreverent to God, and I should be offended at Naomi. All right, I'm just going to keep going. I'm already looking at the time. We're already at 40 minutes. We've got over 30 minutes of this to go. I cannot do this. This is going to go another episode. Maybe we can at least get to the Q&A.
Those are special to just those times, and they bring up good memories. When I sing On Jordan's Stormy Banks, I think of one Easter in 2014 where I sung it at a sunrise service with a church I'd never been to before, and it just rocked my world in the most beautiful ways, watching the sun rise above Black Mountain. There's certain things that mean something to our life because they're only given at that certain moment, and this is that for God's people. El Shaddai, the name of God, that means that he is almighty, is only spoken whenever God makes his promises to his people. It's only spoken whenever God says, I am going to do this for you. And so, again, like I said, God says it to Moses as well. And it means I'm going to make you into a great nation. I'm going to bless you. There's going to be a lot of you. And not only am I going to bless you as a great nation, but you are going to be a blessing to the nations of the earth. I'm going to make you fruitful, you're going to multiply, and you're going to be a blessing to the earth. This name of God is always used when God is giving that promise to his people, and when that promise is being passed from father to son, from father to son, from father to son. That is what this name is tied to. And this name of God is not used really anywhere else. It's like basically just in the Pentateuch, and it's like randomly here in Ruth and maybe a couple other places. But for the most part, it's like literally just with these dudes, what we call the forefathers of the faith, like these guys, the important ones, okay? And so what is Naomi doing here? When she comes back and she says, he did not do this to me. He brought me back, let me see if I can clip there fast enough. He brought me back empty and bitter. I'm without my sons. He didn't multiply me. He didn't make me fruitful. He said he was going to make us fruitful and multiply us and we'd be a blessing to the nations. And here I am coming back from the nations more empty than when I left. I can imagine her the first time she comes back through the gate, imagining when she left with her sons. I can imagine, she's remembering them moving with stuff in their hands, and here she is coming back empty and angry. And all she can say is, you people of this land with your God and his promises, and he did not keep those things. Maybe we felt that way about God before.
Notice she just starts adding all this stuff to what Naomi is saying. Oh, man. I don't even know what to say. I mean, this just shows you that even in Bible teaching, we can just make it say whatever we want to say. She's not even allowing the possibility that what Naomi is doing is speaking a lament, which is biblical, which is scriptural, which is spiritual, which is acceptable. She's turning into, she's just angry at God, and she's being accusatory to God, and we should be offended by it. And she's using this special name of God in order to say these mean things. Naomi's a piece of garbage. That's her great method of Bible study. Oh, man. Okay. All right.
Maybe we felt like he brought us back empty and angry. When I gave birth to my oldest, I went through some severe postpartum depression and anger. Frustration that I had bought into the lies that I existed to just birth kids. And unfortunately, I couldn't do it naturally. My oldest, Winchester, he got stuck. They had to slice me open, do an emergency C-section. That got infected. And I learned that I had some bodily bones misshapen, things like that where I could not birth naturally. And my dreams of having 7 kids went out the window when I learned that they were going to cut me off after one more. And I was so incredibly angry at God because I believed that is what I existed for. And that is a good thing. But man, I'd placed my identity and my hope in something that wasn't God. And all those promises that I thought were due my name, I thought I deserved those kids, right? I was counting on those. That's what I found my identity in. All of it was ripped from me. And I went through a long season where I lost my hope to live. If I can't live to birth more kids, if I don't find my identity in that, where else am I going to find my identity, right? And I can imagine Naomi felt very similar when she lost her only 2 boys. And so she comes back and she's like, God did not do that for me. He did the opposite. And so we see the chapter ends with Naomi returned from Moab, the places of the world, and accompanied by this woman, the Moabite, this woman from the world, her daughter-in-law, arriving in the house of bread as the barley harvest was beginning. So she's got no sons, no heritage. She's like, just rename me, call me bitter. But she's arriving to the house of bread as the barley harvest is beginning. We're supposed to say, okay, Lord, maybe this is the beginning of you doing something. The beginning of repentance is you providing with a harvest. And of course, we know on this side of the cross that Jesus declares he is the bread of life. And any good Jew hearing him say that would say, oh, yes, you are, Lord. You're exactly what we've hungered and we've thirsted for. And I think so often we go to our Bibles and we're like, okay, Lord, you said you would meet me here, but Obadiah makes no sense. Lord, I know I'm supposed to be reading this, but Jeremiah makes no sense. What am I supposed to be getting from this random psalm that sounds like emotional vomit? What am I supposed to be getting from this, Lord? And we get frustrated and we say, Lord, you've abandoned me. You've made me bitter. You've left me high and dry. But the Lord is.
And when she said the Jews would understand what Jesus said, I am the bread of life, did they understand? I think they understood when Jesus makes that claim, and I think John chapter 6, after feeding the 5,000, I think they understood he was making a claim about himself. I think they understood he was connecting it to Moses and manna, but they did not understand the spiritual meaning. They did not understand the depth of his identity. Their reactions kind of prove it. Is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph? Don't they? That sounds like they're somewhat confused. They complain, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? They don't seem to understand. Many walk away. They're confused, offended, and unwilling. So I don't see where all the Jews understood. Man, she just says whatever. She just wants to. I don't get it, man. Okay, we just got to finish this, man. I can't take much more of this.
Is everything that we've hungered for, everything that we've sought for, everything that we want to turn to the nations for. He is that. As Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never grow hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. And so, friends, if we really believe the Bible's true, we'll treat it like it is, and we'll read it. I pray that this encouraged you and gave you a fire for the word, but I know at this point you guys probably have some questions. I mean, we only looked at one chapter of the Bible, and hopefully you saw so much more richness than ever before in it. But you probably have some questions like, okay, well, what about Bible translations? Or
all right, so there's her teaching. Now, we're getting to the question and answer. And here's what I want you to do. All right, when you look at the question and answer, because I think when you get to the Q&A after a message, it's going to reveal a few things. It's going to reveal what the people actually heard. It's going to reveal what actually stood out. It's going to reveal what confused them. It's going to reveal what at least the people think was actually taught. And sometimes when you look at the questions that are asked, and we look at what questions do not get asked, they're going to give us a lot of information. So as we listen to some of this Q&A, I want you to pay attention to the kinds of questions that are being asked and maybe what it tells us about the entire session as a whole. Because if this is about Bible study, then the questions should be about Bible study. If the questions just turn into something else, then what is happening here? But she's kind of telling them what to ask here about Bible translations. And so she's trying to give them a list of things I guess she wants. I don't know. This whole thing makes no sense to me, but okay, let's see what we can find here.
What about this in your book or whatever? And so we wanted to open up the floor for Q&A. My wonderful father-in-law was going to kind of help facilitate it with a microphone so we can hear each other. But we'd love if you want to raise your hands, and we could handle that for a couple minutes. He can walk to you and give you a microphone. Oh, look at him run.
Thank you for your book.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations on its success. There's a lot of good ideas in here, and there was, of all the ideas, one that you mentioned in passing was that you are a prayer journaler. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how prayer journaling helps make the subject of your book better. How does it help being for better Bible studies?
No one has asked about that so far.
That's me. I come up with obscurities all the
No,
time.
I love you so much. This is great. Yes. Okay, so I really struggled with my prayer life in growing up in church. Everybody was like, you ought to be praying. Like, what does it mean when people say, I'll be praying for you? You know, oh yeah, I'll pray for you, girl. You know, like we talked about earlier with prayer lists. I really struggled with, what does that actually look like? What are they expecting of me when I say I'm going to pray for you? What does that look like? And I think a lot of us feel a little ashamed to ask those questions. So I love that you asked that, sir. Okay, so I'm quite ADHD, unmedicated, probably should be. But as you guys can probably tell, I'm a little bit all over the place, and the Lord wired me that way, and praise be to him, right? Like, I'm one of a kind, that's for sure, right? The world can only handle one of me. So I have to write things down in order to keep track of my thoughts. And really, the beautiful part of this is they're then recorded down, and I get to see how the Lord changed my heart over months when praying through something or praying for something. I've got record of praying over dating my husband for years and years, and praying about, Lord, what if he kisses me? What do I do? You know, I got that all down in prayer journals. And now I look back and say, glory be, man, you can see God's hand in my life. But I've got all of it, and I just lay out to the Lord, you know, things I'm doubting or struggling with, you know, things I'm wrestling through. I'll lay
Well, make sure nobody finds anything that you're struggling or dealing with, or someone may accuse you of being like Naomi and that you're taking jabs at God. I hope your prayer journal doesn't have a lament in it, or someone's going to find it and then put you on blast. Okay, all right, never mind. All right, yeah, you can tell I'm still frustrated by that. Okay, so someone asked about a prayer journal. I guess at least it's based off her book. Not a question about how to actually. Now, he asked, how does this help with Bible study? So maybe she's going to get to how this helps with Bible. I mean, here's an opportunity. Someone's at least saying, how does prayer journaling help with Bible study? Now, this part she hasn't said anything yet. Maybe she'll at least connect it and we'll get some kind of answer.
Out just bullet points of people I've promised I'd pray for them, or overarching prayers over the things I've forgotten to pray for, you know? And so it's really quite therapeutic, for lack of a better term. It is really good to put something down, close that book, and say, okay, Lord, you've got that now. I don't have to keep mulling over it. It's not going to do any good. You've got it. I've put it at your feet. I love to picture myself in the throne room of God, because that's what Scripture tells us. We now have access to the throne room of God. And I just place my prayer journal there at his feet. And I thank him for the promises of he holds those things. And again, I don't have to keep mulling over them. I don't have to keep revisiting them. I can come back tomorrow. But one of my favorite things to do is, what we talked about earlier. How do you see God? What about his character and how he's acting? Those 2 takeaways from whatever you read. Then respond to them in your prayer journal. How does that characteristic of you, God, change the way I pray about this issue with my child, or this marital question we have about this life stage, or whatever it is? I don't even know. I'm trying to think about things from my recent prayer journals. I've been praying about parenting and decisions that my husband and I are trying to make. And I say, okay, God, it's shown to me your wrath against sin. You really hate sin, as I've been reading the Minor Prophets this year. And Lord, I want to hate sin that same way. And that's been just a continual prayer that you'll see in my prayer journal all year long. Lord, help me to truly hate sin. And when I've started my day with that, and
now, oh man, the church. So if it's that simple, if God can just give us a hatred for sin like he has, well, then Christians would never sin, because we would hate sin the way God sins. So you're telling me that I can just ask God to give me a hatred for sin, and he's going to give me the same hatred he has for sin. Well, then there would be no more sin within the church. 2,000 years, God obviously hasn't given Christians a hatred for sin since we continue to sin. I mean, sometimes Christians, the way they talk, it's like everything should be so simple, right? God, give me a hatred for sin. God gives me a hatred for sin. Therefore, I never sin again. Because if I hate something, I'm not going to do it. If I hate it, I don't do it. I don't do that. The things I dislike, I don't even need to hate it. The things I'm not attracted to, the things I'm not interested in, the things I'm not drawn to, the things I don't have a desire for, they're not a problem for me. And that's why I've always said, if God wanted to fix the sin problem, it wouldn't even require that much. He doesn't even have to go all the way to give us hate. He just has to give us a disinterest. just, I'm not interested in that. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't like that. But as long as I have a sinful nature, then I'm going to desire it. So I can theoretically, in my brain, come to the conclusion God hates sin. So theoretically, I should hate it. I can try to act like I hate it. But remember, the desire comes from the sinful nature. So unless God gets rid of the sinful nature, oh my goodness, the church, man, church language, I just want to scream. If it would be the simplest thing. Just make sure you understand how simple it would be for God to fix all the sin problem. He does not have to do much of anything. He just has to he could just get rid of the sinful nature. But even if the sinful nature is there, all he has to do is okay, I'm going to turn it way down. You no longer have a desire for sin. You no longer are interested in it. You're no longer attracted to it. It no longer has any hold on you. Well, then you'll stop sinning. I don't have to worry about the sin of homosexuality because I have no desire for it. Zero, none. It's not a problem. I could go to a gay bar. I could hang out with 50 gay people. It's not going to impact me in any way, shape, or form. I have no desire. I have none. Zero, none. Now, so now all God could do is just now turn down the other things, and then I would be the same way. It would be no problem. I have no desire or interest in drinking. None. Zero. None. I have no desire or interest in drugs. None. Zero. All right. So all you got to do is just do that in the other areas, and then I'll stop sinning. It's not that difficult. So it's like on one hand, God, give me this hatred for sin. Is that something God's actually going to do? Because if he did, then we would all stop sinning.
Prayed those words over my life, that totally transforms the rest of my day. I'm sitting there being convicted about all the ways I do actually delight in sin throughout the day when I didn't even realize it, right? So prayer journaling can be so good, at least for me. And so anybody who's ever struggled in their prayer life, I highly, highly, highly recommend a prayer journal because I think it just works with the way that we've been raised and schooled and our brains have been wired. So hopefully that helps you.
She didn't actually say anything about how it helps Bible study. Did you notice that? The seminar is supposed to be about studying the Bible. Oh my goodness gracious.
Congratulations on a great book. I read it.
Thank you.
My lips got tired, but one of the most interesting parts of the book deals with what you call what I call God's big story: creation, fall, redemption, consummation.
Okay, now it is good that the people, everyone thinks our book is so great. At this point, I don't get it. I don't get what's so great about this book. But now we're going to go to this big framework. Now, this is where I have such a problem because she imposes, hey, here's this big framework. And when you look in the Bible, here's what you see. And I hate that kind of stuff. No, go to the text. No framework, no preconceived ideas, and just figure out what the text is saying. Please, for the love of all that is holy, get rid of these stupid preconceived ideas and these broad concepts that we place onto the Bible. Remove everything from the Bible. Just get to the text and go, what does it say by the words that are used? Do basic observational work. What is the genre? What is the boundary of this text? What is the structure of this text? To whom is it being written to? When was it written? What's going on? What is it about? Not even trying to interpret it. But we love these frameworks. The story of the Bible is this. So whenever you read, just figure out what part of the story. Now, there are times I've taught that same kind of concept to kind of give you this overarching framework to try to help people understand. But I realized, and then everyone starts reading the text in light of that framework. And that becomes a filter in the way in which you're reading the text, which then destroys the actual seeing what the text is saying. Forget the stupid frameworks. Forget all the stupid stuff the church tells you to look for. Just go to the text. Man. So this is, I think we're getting ready to go right back into that. At least it's a question about the book. So at least that's a positive thing.
And if you're going to go to New York, it's a lot better to have a map that shows, Fort Myers and all the places in between that you're going to go and you finally get there. Well, I kind of think of creation, fall, redemption, restoration, God's a big story in the same way, and that how much easier it would be for us to understand the verses that we read or the chapters that we read if we knew what the big story was. So even though that's a central part of your book in the beginning, in terms of having a big picture, how do people get the big picture? How can our young people get the big picture? How can old people, like some of
You get the big picture when someone comes and tells you what the big picture is, and then you just accept that big picture, and then you use that big picture as a filter in which to read the text, which is not doing hermeneutics. Stop teaching people how to get the big picture and teach people how to take a text and go, okay, all right, where are we? We're in Ruth. Okay, well, look, just using the text. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. Okay, do I need to go back to the previous chapter? Okay, what's going on in Judges? Why is there so many problems in Judges? What is going on? Okay, well, what is going on? Well, we know there's no king in Israel and everyone's doing all right. So we have a problem. There's no king. All right. Second, we have clearly constant disobedience. What is the result of this disobedience? Well, if I go back from Judges and I go back to Deuteronomy, I have 28 through 30. All right, just show people how to find the things in the text. Man, but no, we like these, and I know why we like these big frameworks, because they give people some sense of knowing where they are. I would rather people not know where they are and try to struggle to figure out things than getting these frameworks. The problem with the framework is it becomes a filter. And so you read everything in light of that filter. And I think that's a problem.
the people in this room, not me, get the big picture later in life?
Yeah. I love that question because I get to pull up another chart. We did half of this chart earlier, but as you'll see, when we move from Genesis 1:1, as he was talking about, that nice gentleman over there, creation quickly turns to the fall. And then we have redemption is the cross, and consummation here is heaven, or Revelation 22:21. And what you'll notice is consummation, we often talk about that in wedding night kind of terms, but that's also a legal term to mean that everything in the legal agreement has been met. All the requirements of a legal contract has been met. So once everything has been met, all God's promises have been met with himself and above and beyond, and a yes and amen, that is the consummation. And so knowing that we are here with the saint, like on this side of the cross has already happened, that helps us understand how the people of the New Testament were understanding or speaking about the Old Testament. One thing you'll find, no matter where you are in the Bible, is the Bible's constantly looking back at creation. Whether you're reading a psalm and it's using all this creation language, or you're looking at the tabernacle and the temple and they're built to kind of mirror the Garden of Eden, or you're looking at Revelation 22 and it's describing heaven and it sounds a lot like the Garden of Eden. It's all looking back because that is what we lost with the fall. That's what we're longing for. We're longing for a better Eden. Only now it's a city because it's filled with people. Just like we talked about, God is blessing us, multiplying us. And he actually called Adam and Eve to do that, and that they will be a blessing to the nations. And so that's why it's not just another garden that we're going to of us and God, right? Now it's a city. It's filled with the fruit of God's promises. And so, yeah, knowing where we've been really shapes how we understand where we're going. Because we're not anticipating just another little garden. It's all about us with Adam and Eve.
And I want to make this very clear because I think some people are going to misinterpret my frustration. I understand the benefit of some kind of overarching idea. I'm not saying it's always completely wrong, all right? I want to make it very clear because there's times I may even provide something similar. But my concern is, if this is about Bible study, you don't just give people an overarching thing. You got to teach people how to take the text and do basic steps through the text. And those steps must be observational in nature. Not, Okay, so this is where we are in the story. And so I'm going to read this in light of where I'm supposedly at in this overarching theme. The overarching theme may give me some kind of framework, right? And I got no problem going, well, this is before the cross. Okay. This is after the cross. Okay. All right. This is creation. This is after creation. Okay. I know those are just observational facts of where we are in the text. I got no problem with that. Okay. But what we have a tendency to do is sometimes we will read something and then we'll bring in this additional, the cross or the garden. We'll bring in these additional ideas into a text that may in no way, shape, or form be even thinking about that, referring to it, is even connected to it. You've got to let the text stand on its own. If it brings in additional information, then great, we can look at it. But if the text doesn't, then we've got to leave the additional information alone because the text itself is not acknowledging it, not pulling from it, not mentioning it, not quoting it, not referring to it, not even hinting at it. Well, then stay away from the other stuff and try to figure out what's going on. If that makes sense. Like in Ruth, it literally says, when the judges ruled. So that allows me to go back to Judges and figure out what's going on. Well, when I see all the problems going on when Judges, okay, I can understand who this is happening to. That may lead me back to Deuteronomy 28 through 30, which explains exactly what's going to happen if they're not following the covenant. So we have covenant failure and no king. And then ultimately, when we get to the genealogy at the end of Ruth, we're going to see Jesse, which is going to bring about David. Okay, now we can... But that's all found in the text. I'm not imposing anything on it. The text itself is leading me to it, if that makes sense. So I'm not, like some of the things she's saying, I know some of you are like, well, that sounds really good. I understand. If you have a structure, don't allow the structure to become the filter through which you read the scripture. If you read the scripture and you want to try to place it in a larger framework, okay, but be very careful not to allow that framework to be the controlling principle and how you interpret the text.
Right? We're anticipating a city, and there's that call over our lives to go and spread the good news of Jesus because we want to see them there, right? We want to see the nations with us in heaven. We want to stand arm in arm with Christians that we disagree with, right? Like we expect that in heaven. And so, understanding where we've been and where we're going gives Christians that hack. I tell people, and I think it's in my book, like in one of the each chapter ends with some tips, like to print this off and put it in a bookmark so that you can have it wherever you're reading the Bible. Just ask yourself, where am I in the biblical narrative? Because if I'm here with a prophet, priest, and king, it's looking forward to the perfect prophet, priest, and king.
See what she just did? If I'm reading a prophet, priest, and king, I'm just to assume it's looking forward to the prophet, priest, and king. Unless the text gives you some indication that it's pointing to something forward, and unless the New Testament writers tell you that it was, then no, you can't say that it's looking forward to a prophet, priest, and king unless the text tells you that. You don't just show up with these preconceived ideas and place them upon the text. That's not Bible study. That's not hermeneutics. It's just ridiculous church talk. Man, I don't understand how this even passes as anything remotely. This is not going to help anyone. And again, it's in my book, in my book, in my book, in my book. Just call this a stinking info commercial.
And ultimately, that's met in the person and work of Christ. And so we're going to see that in its fullness in eternity. And just being able to jump through those, this is going to be showing me a prophet. Okay, that shows me Jesus meets the prophetic role perfectly in himself.
No, this is showing me a prophet at the end. Now, what do I know about this prophet? Now, does the New Testament grab this prophet and say it points to Jesus? If not, you are imposing that on the text. Man, I think the greatest enemy, I'm going to say this, the greatest enemy to understanding the Bible has been the church.
You get to just kind of have a head start of where we're supposed to be applying it, understanding it, and essentially it's just helping with interpretation, not hermeneutics like we talked about earlier. So I think it's just discipling. And you know what's beautiful about this? One more thing, I'm sorry. What's beautiful about this, creation, fall, redemption, consummation, it tends to be taught in Reformed circles, but it's not denominationally specific. This is pre-denominational divisions. So across any denominational divides, we can teach this to our brothers and sisters in the faith, and this can help them get into the Word. And so it's just an interpretive tool.
It's not an interpretive tool. You're placing something on the text. Don't teach this to anybody, for crying out loud. Teach them an actual method. Teach them observational skills. Man, oh, good gracious. Oh, this is getting on my nerves so bad. I just want to finish.
To help us get in, get deep, know where we've been and where we're going. So yes. Tucson.
Yes, I'm Tucson. I just flew in today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you for your book. First-time author, congratulations. And I've read most of the books that you've suggested, How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth. It's an okay book until yours came out. And the reason I liked yours is because each chapter starts with a story. And it's just so relatable. And it's just a good book, and I think everybody should read it, you know, from beginning to end. I've been listening to it on the plane over here again. But the question I have is, when you were verse mapping Ruth, for maybe people that don't know, is I didn't go to seminary. I mean, I've learned a lot from you. How do you get to that point with resources?
Oh, it's so hard. You know, I love to introduce, like I said earlier in the slideshow, I like to show people resources, you know, a Bible dictionary. I share this in my book. Just get a Bible dictionary. I know you're probably in your head going, a dictionary? Really? That's not going to help me. I can Google things. But I promise you, a Bible dictionary is 100 times better than Google will ever be for your Bible studies. You just look up any person, place, or thing, it's going to help you. But past a Bible dictionary, it gets really hard when I'm sharing with people resources. It gets really hard to recommend to people of all different denominations and all different backgrounds and all different reading levels resources to use. I try and be as broadly evangelical as possible. Like, I try and reach people of all different denominations, you know, and cast my net actually quite wide.
Why are you worried about denominational differences? The goal is to learn the Bible, not to be appeased. Oh, I want to cast my net as wide as possible. Yeah, so you can sell your book to everyone as possible. This is stinking ridiculous. I don't care who you offend. It's about figuring out the Bible. I don't care if it offends the stinking Presbyterians, the Reformed, or the non-Reformed. Who cares? And the point is, this is what we need to understand the text, and if it offends someone of a different denomination, who stinking cares? Oh, it matters if you want to sell your book, right? Is that what you're saying? Oh, I want to cast my net as wide as possible, and I want to make sure it's broad, and no, who cares? Recommend the resource if the resource is going to help people actually understand the text. But here's the thing. Why do you got to give people resources? Why don't you teach people steps and methods that they can utilize with very limited resources? I don't know, like how to do an observational outline. I don't know how to do a chapter summary method. I don't know how to do the 5 basic things. I can't stand. Oh, well, you know, it's hard with certain resources because, you know, you got to keep all these denominational differences. Oh, no, if I have a resource that is contradictory to charismatic theology, then so be it, because charismatic theology is garbage, it's trash, and it's poison. Who cares if they get offended? Oh, I don't want to offend these people. So we're going to do Bible study in a way to ensure that we keep everyone nice and safe within their little denominational structures. Well, I can't give them a resource that could contradict their garbage charismatic theology. No, can't do that. What kind of stinking compromise is that? Now, we can only have Bible study resources that agree with our little group. But I want to make sure that mine can appeal to everyone. Yeah, so that everyone will buy your book. Oh my goodness gracious, man. All right.
But the problem with that is, I'll have people and they're like, your Bible's missing a couple books, girl. Like I'll have people and they'll say, well, the commentary you recommended, I don't agree with when they talk about baptism or whatever. And so I tread lightly when recommending specific commentaries unless I get to give the caveat of you don't and you shouldn't agree with everything and most resources. So commentaries for
Now, please note, she's even including Catholics. Your Bible's missing some books, girl. So now you can't offend Catholics? Yeah, the problem with Catholics would not be that their Bible has more books. The issue is they believe in a justification by an infused righteousness, and we believe in a justification by an imputed righteousness. For crying out loud, girl! Oh my goodness. And you should disagree with everything in the commentary. Now this raises the bigger question. So if the commentaries aren't right and you disagree with the commentaries, so then does every individual just become their own pope and decide what the text is? Hey, that person spent years in school. I can disagree with that commentary. I can disagree with that commentary. So who is ultimately the authority on what is truth? Well, it becomes the individual. That nobody ever sees this problem within the evangelical non-Catholic world. We don't have a magisterium, so we just appoint ourselves as the magisterium. So I can read a commentary and go, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. Oh, wait, I agree with this one. Of course. And who's the determinate factor of truth? You are. Not the Bible. You are the determinate factor of truth. Girl. Man.
For a while, a lot of well-meaning pastors basically said, don't get them because you're going to believe whatever they say. And let's be so for real. A commentary is another person's thoughts on the Bible. It's not inerrant, meaning it is fallible. Like it can have not truths. It can have opinions in it. And it's definitely interpretation. And no matter who you read, there's going to be things with it that you can pick apart and not like. But no matter who you read, it's going to be hearing from somebody else. It's like listening to a sermon on the passage at times. And so I like to recommend resources that are broadly historical, that are going to give us that needed historical background information and not too theologically opinionated, but can still be pastoral. Still, help you understand the tough passages. And that can be really hard to find. If I'm going to be so for real with you guys, I know this might be live streamed on YouTube, so this might get me in trouble, but we're really trying to pitch a line of lay people commentaries that still get you deep, but don't get, too caught up in the weeds of the Greek and the Hebrew and make it hard to read and understand, because there's just not a lot of good resources for the everyday Christian to get deep without having to get caught up in the muddiness, to all of a sudden know, what's textual criticism and all these things. So,
yeah, because we don't want the people to know this. It's too much we don't want them to get caught up in the weeds. See, we want to make it look simple and look like it's straightforward. But see, ultimately, the result of this is you get to determine what truth is. And that's the way it works in Christianity. Look, that's why when people argue with me on YouTube, I'm like, I don't care to argue. You can believe whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I don't argue with anybody anymore. I don't care, because ultimately the determination of truth, the one who determines truth is the individual. I don't care. Christians, you can play, no, the scriptures determine the truth. No, what determines the truth is your interpretation of scripture. You interpret it. You believe your interpretation is right. You believe your interpretation is infallible. And then you say that your interpretation not only is right, you will condemn anybody else who does not follow that interpretation, or you will leave a church that doesn't follow your interpretation until you find a church that agrees with your interpretation, because you ultimately are the one who determines what truth is. And we don't want to get into the weeds. Why don't we want to get into the weeds? Why don't you want people in the church to know what textual criticism is? You don't want them to know what textual criticism is? And then one day they're on YouTube and they stumble upon Bart Ehrman and they're like, wait a minute, there's all these textual variants? Wait a minute, there's all these different manuscripts? Wait a minute, there's all these problems? And then they find out why? Because Christians are like, no, don't look over there, don't look over there. Stay right here, we got to keep it in. We don't want to get into the weeds. We don't want it to get too muddy because we got to keep everyone stupid and we got to keep everyone ignorant and we got to hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Just buy my book. Just buy my book. Don't buy those books. Just buy my book. Oh my goodness gracious. I cannot stand this approach within Christendom.
I recommend starting with a beginner commentary. All of that to say, I recommend starting with some kind of beginner commentary and then slowly get into more commentaries and resources and atlases and all those things as you're able, and talk to your pastor about commentary recommendations from him. But at the end all be all, I would be lying to you if I was to say that I didn't get to that point of looking at Ruth that way without commentaries, without other scholars pointing out those things. I would be lying. Okay. You know, those scholars who specialize in ancient Near Eastern culture and history do for a reason. I remember looking at an atlas, or I was looking at two different atlases, and they both said two separate things about Moab. You know, I was like, great, cool. But you know what? I'm way more wise than if I believed one of them and just ran with it, right? So I encourage believers, whether it's...
Why don't you teach? She's not going to teach any method. There's not going to be any method here. Nothing. She's not teaching. I don't understand. So the answer is go to commentaries, and go to commentaries your pastor agrees with you. So here's the thing. Pick your church, let the pastor tell you which commentary to read, and then read commentaries that agree with your church. Don't get into the weeds, and I guess don't have any actual knowledge in how to actually study the text. You just read commentaries.
Translations or commentaries or even theological issues, to study where everybody's coming from and try and understand multiple different viewpoints, because you'll be 1,000 times wiser than just only having your theological lane and my favorite pastor, my favorite commentary. So again, I recommend reading as much as you can, and where there's differences, you know, some people might say, well, we don't know exactly what Ruth's name means. Just take it all with a grain of salt and study more and debate less, as I like to say. We're on a lifelong journey of studenthood, and I'll never have Ruth mastered, though at this point I've taught it more than anything else. I'll never have it mastered. There'll always be more that I can dig into and find.
Now, I do appreciate that. So then she shouldn't have been, what was the whole first part? That last part is, study all the commentaries, read all the commentaries. Then who cares if they offend anybody? Who cares? Recommend all of them. Recommend any of them. But the thing is, nobody should touch a stinking commentary. No one should touch a stinking study Bible until they've done observational work on the text without any commentary, without any notes, just the text and you figuring out what is actually there.
Mind about the book of Ruth and how beautiful it is. But if we're on a lifelong studenthood, then we're never going to be finished. And we get to just feast and feast. And so it's good news. That didn't truly answer your question, but it's an issue for sure. Not great.
So she doesn't want to truly answer the question because she doesn't want to possibly recommend a commentary that's going to tick off people. Do you see a cop-out? That's so lame. That's such a cop-out. That's so cowardly. Well, I don't want to recommend a specific commentary because I could offend some. Who cares? Are you there to help the people? Or are you stinking there to simply sell a book? You don't want to lose your 300,000 subscribers because if you recommend certain commentaries, I mean, she's in a Presbyterian church. I'm assuming maybe she's Presbyterian. So then she's not going to recommend a commentary that would call into question the Presbyterian view on quote unquote sacraments or quote unquote baptizing babies. No. Can't do that because then she could lose people. Who cares? So I'm not gonna really answer your question because I don't want to offend. But you should just read all the commentaries. But I'm not gonna name any of them because I don't want to offend it. What kind of nonsense is that? Stand up and take a stinking stand. Let the chips fall where they are. You may not sell as many books, and you may go from 300,000 subscribers to 287,000. I know you'll be devastated.
Great resources I can just undoubtedly recommend to everybody. So yeah.
Faith, if we can maybe take 2 more questions. I've got a lady here and then another follow-up across the room.
I'm taking too long. I apologize.
Thank you. First and foremost, like everyone has already said, congratulations on your book. I absolutely love it, and I was anticipating it when you first announced it on YouTube. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. You have definitely changed the way that I study my Bible, and my husband knows from all the times that I've gotten excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, look what I discovered. So thank you. So obviously you're a mom, and so being a mom, this is just...
Okay, we're going to stop there. We're not going to get into any actual methods. Nothing. We're not going to get into any... I don't understand. I don't get it. What do we even say? Did anybody know how to summarize all of this? We're almost gone 4 hours working on all of it. What do we take away from this? I don't know. What do we take away? Don't recommend books that could offend certain people because you want to cast a broad net, especially if you've written a book and you have a YouTube channel. Oh, if you're going to get commentaries, I guess ask your pastor because you want to get your church-approved commentaries. Oh, that's such nonsense. But then she said, read broad. So she was kind of waffling back and forth in what her approach actually was because she just didn't want to offend. She says it's an issue. Yeah, it's an issue for you because you don't want to offend anybody. That may be my biggest takeaway. That's going to drive me absolutely nuts. I guess the biggest takeaway is that maybe her book gives some kind of method. Maybe. I don't know. I know this didn't give us any kind of method. After over an hour-long episode that we've reviewed and we've taken 4 hours, I've yet to be able to say, okay, so her steps are do this first, do this second. Or her method would fit in line with this historical method or this historical method. Or she gave multiple methods, biographical, topical, thematic, word study, book background study. I'm going through all the 12 basic methods, chapter summary, chapter analysis. I could go through all the 12 devotional. I could go through all the different methods. She's not going to give one that would even fit into any of those 12. She didn't even give you a framework. And she by no means gave any, she basically said, go to a commentary. She didn't even say go to a method. She didn't even say do observational work. Like that, I don't even understand. But all the people think she's wonderful and thinks it's great. I don't get it. All right. Well, we're at oh man, we're almost at 90 minutes. Okay. This is not the way I wanted to spend my Saturday, by no means. I did not want to even do this, but I started it. There's, I think, 2 more questions there. Yeah, you can go find it. I don't even care at this point. Well, I don't probably get into some other issue, but man alive, that one kind of just went over that man, that's a bridge too far when you say you can't give certain recommendations because you don't want to offend people. That's ridiculous, man. That kind of cop out. That's cowardly. That is, you're worried about your reach. No, the goal is to get people to study the Bible. And if you're going to get people to study the Bible and you're going to try to find truth, guess what? Not everyone can be right. If charismatics are right, then I'm wrong. If I'm right, charismatics are wrong. I mean, you can go through every issue. either Catholics are right about justification or we're right about justification. We can go on and lordship is right or lordship is not right. Like, if you're going to study the Bible, you're going to come into conflict. That's it. The study of the Bible will put you in conflict with anybody else studying the Bible, because I guarantee you, two people studying the Bible are not going to agree, which leads to deeper, bigger issues. And it comes down to, again, who determines truth? The individual. Don't say the scriptures determine truth. The individual's interpretation will determine truth Now, it may not determine ultimate truth, because God's word stays true no matter what we do. But from a practical, everyday standpoint of what we believe and how we live and the church we attend, we determine what truth is. We claim it's from the Bible, but it's based on our interpretation of the Bible. And Christians, anytime Christians disagree with me, they'll say, you need to read your Bible. You need to read your Bible. And they always think that because they read it and they see it a certain way, that if anyone disagrees with them, it's because they haven't read the Bible. Oh, that is so stupid. Don't even get me started on that. No, many people read the Bible and nobody comes to the same conclusion. That's a bigger issue. Why is that? Well, we can't even agree on how to study it. And when someone does a seminar on how to study it, it turns into no method in actually how to study it, other than buy my book. So I don't know. Do I need to get her book? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I don't get it. Whole thing becomes massively frustrating. I go mad listening to it. But there you have it. I don't know. I don't know what you take of that. I don't even know what to take away from that. Typically with sermons, happens with sermons, even if I disagree, you know what it turns into. I strongly disagree, and then it will turn into 3, 4, 5 hours of actual study of the text. Right? This leads us nowhere. Leads us to nothing. I can't critique the Bible study method because she didn't give one. We did some work on critiquing her Ruth study. The main thing she did with Ruth was make accusations against Elimelech and Naomi that are not supported by the text. And she went way beyond what the text actually says. So there's not much to do there than just demonstrating that. We can continue to do some work on the book of Ruth, but we've already covered chapter 1 in great detail. So, I'm left with nothing. I'm literally left with nothing other than 4 hours of waste. So, all right, I give up. And I know when I say I give up, you don't even know how real that I give up is. Yeah, I don't think anyone truly understands the depth of my just being done with the whole game. Because it's all so just ridiculous. It is. It's so pathetic. It really is. Nobody, man, it really is. And so don't anyone get mad at me and say, no, you believe whatever you want. I don't care. Interpret the Bible any way you want. Believe whatever you want, because ultimately you determine what truth is. And you say, no, I don't. The Bible does. No, your interpretation of the Bible, which you just happens to think that yours is right. And okay, yeah. And nobody can agree on literally any. We can't even seem to figure out how to actually study the Bible. That's maddening. 2,000 years and we can't seem to even figure out how to actually study the text. And I guess the best takeaway from her is you just go to commentaries. Why do I need her book? Just give me a list of commentaries. But she can't give me a list of commentaries because that could offend some people. So she's got to give me a book that kind of does everything in such a broad way that it doesn't offend anybody, even Catholics. Oh, my goodness gracious. All right, well, the good thing is now this is over. Next time we can do something far different, and we can move far away from this, and we can try to do something far better, because this was a disaster. I wish I never would have started it. I wish I never would have. But I did, and I finished it. So there you go. At least I can... Right? All right. Goodbye.